Like, the irony of this movie is so much of the movie is, it's monologues, it's like narration is telling us about how the future is.
In voiceover.
But we're just looking at, like, regular streets. Like, oh, the crime, like, there's so much crime all the time. And we just see a street with people just going to the store like it's normal. Or they're like, traffic is so bad right now because of all the problems we have in our society. And it's like a road with 5 cars on it. Welcome to the Skiffy and Fanty Show's Torture Cinema.
Well, who are we who create such a thing? Heroes and or villains?
Is that the best line you could quote from the movie?
It's probably not, but it was at the moment that it was like, there's a good one.
That's sad. Oh, lordy. I'm Sean.
I'm Daniel.
And on this live Torture Cinema show, we will discuss 1987's R.O.T.O.R, directed by Cullen Blaine, written by the same and Bud Lewis, and starring, I'm using that word very loosely here, starring Margaret Trigg, Richard Geswine, Jane Smith, and some other folks who probably regret being part of this movie. This movie was chosen by our Patreon supporters based on a poll they made us do. In this case, not on financially successful movies that suck, which I put in the script and is incorrect, based on a poll that Paul, who has now taken over management of the Patreon, put together of, I assume, movies about evil robots or robot cops, because there was Cyborg Cop on that list as well.
Yeah, they weren't all
this
cops,
is the one that won.
because there was also that someone.
Oh, yeah, Simone.
Simone, yeah.
Yeah, which I guess would be
just robot-themed, yeah.
Yeah, robots. Yeah. So, in any case, thanks a lot, guys, for picking this movie of the ones on there, because I can guarantee you Cyborg Cop would have been way more fun than this.
Yes. Well, Cyborg Cop is also, wasn't that supposed to originally be Masters of the Universe 2? Or was that one of the...
it?
Yeah, originally Masters of the Universe 2 was supposed to happen, but the first one bombed so badly, they shelved it, and they took existing footage and changed it into another movie, and I thought it was Cyborg Cop.
The 1993 movie?
No, like a late... Maybe it was that late. Was it?
I'm looking right now because I'm having a brain.
Well, while you're looking, as always, please share your comments with us about this and past episodes at skiffyandfanty.com/listener suggestions. And if you're live with us today, feel free to throw thoughts and questions our way. Please, no more movie ideas, because I need to recover a little bit from R.O.T.O.R before we, honestly... Yeah,
I will just,
and I haven't even finished the damn movie yet, so I will.
I know.
But I had to aggressively fast forward the last half hour, but I will finish this bastard.
Lord. Did you for the record, if you want to watch R.O.T.O.R, I will just note the version that's legally available on Tubi is actually the Riff Tracks version, which means it's not the raw film. It's film with commentary on it. So if you want to watch actual R.O.T.O.R, the film, were 2 options I found on YouTube. One has Finnish subtitles for some reason.
That was beautiful.
And another does not. And so they appear to be essentially the same other than the subtitles. Now, I want to note, the subtitles
are interesting.
Appear to have been, like, the version that's been ported to YouTube was a version that had the subtitles on them. So I think it was a VHS released in Finland with Finnish subtitles. And I just want to note, what ambitious motherfucker decided this movie needed to be in Finnish? Like, what is going on?
Well,
I can't believe
at the very beginning, the Finnish subtitles mention Los Angeles, too. But
which is not what this movie
it's in
said.
Dallas. Like, later they talk about Dallas, but, like, did they think, like, the Finnish people wouldn't be like, Dallas? What is this you speak of?
That's not a real town in 1980s Finland.
That's not going to have robot cops that are killers. Or...
Does it? Who knows what this movie's so bad. It's so bad. So, anyway.
Did you look up Cyborg Cop?
I did. And it is not the one that you're thinking of. It's just a direct-to-video release that has John Rhys Davies in it. Sorry. In any case, we need to get to what we're drinking.
Yeah, take a drink.
Yeah, I need a drink because I'm recovering from a cold still and I'm dying.
Okay.
Anyway, Jeff Patterson, by the way, is in chat. Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
Okay, so, drinking. So we usually have a beverage of some kind. I have two. But I want to let everybody know that alcohol is not a requirement to drink. But if you are drinking alcohol, please drink responsibly. Because, obviously. So, Daniel, what beverage are you drinking?
My beverage today is simple. I'm just having a Riesling.
Oh.
And a glass of water along with it. But...
Oh, fantastic.
And you, Sean?
Very simple. So I have a grapefruit bubbly, bourbon, whatever those are called. Bubbly? Those. Yeah. Which is, I don't know what I guess just my normal beverage for when my throat is dying. But I also made a Mai Tai.
Isn't it a Bublé? Like that sing?
A Bublé?
Yeah, like...
is it it's a Michael Bublé, You're right. Yeah, it sings jazz. Yeah. And then my other drink, is just a Mai Tai. I did not make a themed drink because I wasn't sure I was going to have alcohol, so I didn't bother to go. And I have some Southern Comfort in my cabinet, and so I just made a quick Mai Tai with some juices.
Oh, that fits.
Yeah,
that's fair.
It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
What would you drink for this movie? What themed cocktail could you make?
Motor oil, so I died?
There's actually a stout called Motor Oil.
Oh, really? That would have...
it's called Old Engine Oil.
Okay, yeah, that would have...
It's actually really good. We'll just note.
I would try that.
I would try it again, too. But check your local Total Wine. They might have it. So Jeff Patterson notes in chat, the Masters of the Universe sequel was scrapped for Van Damme's Cyborg.
Oh, okay.
According to Canceled Movies Wiki.
Okay, Cyborg Cop.
Yeah, different things.
Mm-hmm. Not the same thing.
Not the same thing. Well, given that Daniel has not technically finished the movie because he's violating the only rule of torture cinema that exists, I've placed Daniel in charge of giving me a very brief summary of what he thinks this movie's about. Emphasis on short, just what's the main plot of this tragedy of a film? Go, Daniel.
So, society's in disarray with violence and turmoil and humans being awful to humans. And the only way of keeping peace in this chaos, according to Dr. Cold Iron, who is a scientist and a police captain, so he's Captain Doctor or Dr. Captain Cold Iron, is to develop a police robot that will maintain order and cut down on like police deaths. And so he dubs this project R.O.T.O.R for Robotic Officer Tactical Operations Research. And he's doing this thing, but his superior, who is his like commander, Burglar or something like that, he wants development rushed because the senator that's giving them funds for this, the sugar daddy, wants the project done with and wants it to be like make money or something. And so he's like, get this out like tomorrow, Cold Iron, and get this thing on the streets. And Cold Iron's like, no, dude. And he gets fired as a result. He's like, Bulgur Wheat is like, don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. So Cold Iron goes away, leaving his assistant in charge, along with this bumbling robot. But then this other guy named, what is his name now? Shoe Boogie, who's like a total asshole. He like does something that causes an accident and R.O.T.O.R gets activated. And when R.O.T.O.R gets activated, he like goes off and he like knocks over some chairs. He steals his motorcycle and goes out and pulls over people for speeding and like shoots the guy in the head for speeding. And maybe for being a dick. I don't know, because like many of the people in the movie, the guy's kind of a dick.
Sure.
And so then the rest of the movie is basically Rotor chasing after the girl that gets away, and Dr. Cold Iron, Captain Dr. Cold Iron, trying to keep the project back under control, and stop Rotor. And somebody is it Captain Dr. Cold Iron that's really good at lassoing and likes explosives? Or was that another character?
Well, yes, he is very good at lassoing.
Yeah. And so, like, early on in the...
Explosives?
Well, early on in the movie, there's this bunch of scenes like, why is this in the movie? And it's like Chekhov's gun. It's only there to, like, make the ending not make sense a little less.
Pretty much. Yeah. But, I mean, the beginning of this film is confused.
Oh, it is, yeah.
Because there's, like, a time jump at the beginning. There's basically, like, a frame narrative, I guess, because he's arrested at night in the beginning after, I guess, killing the robot, and yet he killed it during the day at the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So what was he doing? They still had their car. Like, this movie is a long string of
continuity
plot points that are not connected together in any meaningful way. Yeah. So there's
the summary.
Yeah. I think you got what should have been what the movie was about. Because it's a very confused film. I will note that this film is apparently semi-famous in Argentina, because there's an Argentinian rock band whose name in English translates to "He Killed a Motorcycle Cop," which is a reference to this movie. In the original language, "Él mató a un policía motorizado," which I probably butchered it. Carturo, who will probably listen to this, will correct me later, and I will get it more right later. It is a indie rock band of some note. They have their own wiki page, so apparently they're reasonably significant. They've had 4 albums since 2004.
I want to know why choose this movie. Like, what was... Because, like, there's lots of movies that make it into rock, lore, myth, but this one?
Okay, so
there's got to be a story there.
Is there's the story that they have on Wiki, doing really deep research right now, is, quote, "We picked a strange name that made fun of the typical band or artist's names. One day we were watching a bad movie with a subtitle, El Mato a un Policía Motorizado, and we said that's it."
Alrighty.
So there you go. So what's ironic or alarming, perhaps is more the correct word, is that this film had some degree of international distribution.
Through random.
Purely random, it appears. Finland, Argentina, I think it was released in Spain at one point. There is a UK release of the original RCA Columbia VHS. Just note, RCA Columbia, what are you doing with your life? On the other hand, also kind of glad that you released it, because I don't think that it should necessarily be scrubbed from the history books, but still.
I'm sure it was cheap.
It was probably cheap. They did not cost much money. The original writer of this movie apparently wanted his name scrubbed because the director... It's not the movie he wrote. Okay. They cut a bunch of stuff out that they deemed too expensive, which, when you watch this movie, you'll understand why, because literally nothing in this movie, other than probably renting of space and question mark permits to film in locations, I don't know if they had them, that really didn't have much expense here.
What about that? So, like, the dancing, like, prototype that he does the presentation for? So, like, that was like some computer animation, I guess.
That thing. Yes, that was done by the voiceover artist Lauren Bivens, who is the voice of Cold Iron, because the voice of Cold Iron is not the actor of Cold Iron, which you'll note very quickly. Who is also known for his working on a number of visual effects projects. So, if I recall correctly, Lauren Bivens was involved. He's involved in some animation. He did work on one of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies for visual effects. He was working as late as 2017 as a visual effects guy. I'm not going to say he did many great movies, because just a quick glance at his his filmography does not suggest somebody who had many great.
Which Texas
great jobs.
Chainsaw was this? Was this next gen or new generation?
Oh my god,
Or
which one? It's one that has a subtitle. So
the Leatherface.
Well, he did camera and electrical department. Yeah, for the next generation.
Yeah.
So he was in the camera and electrical department for that one.
Okay.
Anyway, but no. So the police robot though that they have in this is not one that they made for the film. That police robot was actually made for a different department. So
the comedic one that was like, I'll give you a handball.
Yeah. So that comedic robot is real. He exists. I mean, I don't know if the voice exists, but like the actual robot, this little robot thing exists. His name is Willard the Robot. Willard the Robot is the robot in the movie. The robot's name is APD-2. He was purchased in 1986 by the police department of the town of Addison, which is part of Dallas, for, at that time, $17,750.
Wow.
His job was to perform public relations duties, and he was tapped to lead, and I'm quoting here, the Christmas parade in Addison that year. The note here is that his actual contributions to law enforcement and his subsequent whereabouts are unknown. Apparently, he is now part of witness protection after making this movie. So everything about this movie...
I have seen him, actually. It must be a Texas thing.
It might be a Texas
hospitals
thing.
Here in Houston, where I'm on sabbatical, they have these police robots, like hospital security, that wander the hallways, and
that's creepy.
They're really scary. And they're just like loaded with cameras, but they just move along and they don't talk, thankfully. But maybe he was like refabbed into one of them.
Maybe. It's very possible. I think the whole thing is like the only visual effects shot that I think they actually paid for, or visual effects thing they significantly paid for, was a couple of set pieces and the really terrible half T-Rex, half Neanderthal robot exoskeleton that they have animated.
Yeah.
And that's about it. Like, the irony of this movie is so much of the movie is it's monologues, it's like narration is telling us about how the future is.
In voiceover.
But we're just looking at, like, regular streets. Like, oh, the crime. Like, there's so much crime all the time. And we just see a street with people just going to the store like it's normal. Or they're like, traffic is so bad right now because of all the problems we have in our society. And it's like a road with 5 cars on it. Like... It's a film that like just wants to tell us the thing that it's imagining but can't be bothered to show.
And all the police dying to protect us.
Which we almost never see.
No.
Do we see a police officer actually die in this movie?
No.
I don't think we do.
Do we really see many police officers doing police work?
Not really. We just... I mean, like... There's that one scene where that one cop, he's like the only actual person of color who's playing a person of color he's meant to be. We'll come back to that later. Mm-hmm. But he's just like, it's after Cold Iron, for whatever reason, shows up at some gas station, and there's, I guess, a robbery in progress, and he's just like, he's had it, and he just decides to shoot.
And he shoots, yeah.
Yeah, he shoots, and then the lady that was being kidnapped does like a bunch of ninja kicks, which, sure. And then he just waits for the police to come, and they're like, let us do all the police work, and you just go back to, working in a lab. and there's this weird moment where I'm thinking, like, are we supposed to think that things have gotten so bad in the future that basically the cops don't hold people, like, nobody pauses to say, maybe we need to at least do a cursory investigation and make sure the shooting was justified? Because, or was that the 80s? I mean, I was a kid. Like, were the 80s that bad?
Do they really ask if shootings are justified now?
I mean, they kind of don't now. I mean, sometimes.
I don't think it was better in the 80s.
No, you're right. But it's just, I don't know, it's ridiculous.
Yes.
This movie it makes no sense, though.
So it doesn't make sense from the start when it says based on an original idea. Because what about this movie is really original?
Not a lot.
Right? Because this is after RoboCop, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Isn't it? Right? RoboCop is
Well, yes, soon after, so they must have really rushed it. RoboCop is
it,
87, even though this
it's
is
probably around similar timing.
because this didn't actually get released to 88.
Right.
So,
I mean, it's definitely borrowing from multiple Eva robot stories of the 80s.
Right.
Like, there's Terminator in here.
oh yeah,
There's
which they actually
obvious
reference.
RoboCop.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's literally a Terminator reference in the movie. Like, there's a moment when they literally, the characters stop and they're just like, hey, we're not making, it's not like that movie you all know. And I'm sitting here going,
We know.
we know, but also your attempt to cleverly play this off actually rings pretty hollow here. You should just not draw attention to it.
Yes.
It's better to just pretend that you're original at this point.
But
yeah, so it's got that, and then, any of the other, like, evil robot movies of that time period, it's got, like, it's got a really poorly constructed political messaging that RoboCop has, but I want to emphasize poorly constructed, because I think in the chat we were having on our Discord, Andrea correctly identified it as basically right-wing, like, fantasy, like,
Yeah.
gun rights fantasy kind of thing, because every single thing that Cold Iron said is happening, like, fits neatly into this little box of, like, the imagination of how the world goes bad and we must justify these, like, curtailments of all rights and creating the super police.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's that, which is fun.
This is a disturbing little gem.
It's pretty disturbing. In a way, more disturbing than Red Dawn.
I've actually,
which
yeah,
also
never
is
seen
a right-wing
that.
fantasy.
Yeah.
But Red Dawn, way more interesting.
Well, isn't it also, like, more fun?
It is way more fun. It also is way too serious for the acting talent on offer. So, I mean, it's Charlie Sheen trying to be, like a tough little terrorist. Like, I like him, but he's
and
not...
Hot Shots.
I mean, yeah, fair point. Yeah.
Oh, God.
Well, so let's get to our likes and dislikes, shall we?
Let's.
So, Daniel, I would love to know what your legitimate, totally correct like is about this movie.
Shit. It ended, though I actually don't know that yet because I didn't finish it.
It has not ended for you. This is the
not.
nightmare that keeps giving.
Yes. God. I literally spent every moment watching this after the first, 5 minutes, trying to think, what the hell is going to be my like for this? What is going to be my like? The only thing that, brief moment I was like, was when that woman fought back. In, with the karate moves, as silly and stupid as it was. Because everything else prior to that was this movie will never show a woman, having... because the misogyny was passed off as a joke in prior scenes and such, and later scenes. But I didn't expect her to be able to fight back or show that kind of agency. And so when that happened, I was like, all right, good.
Okay.
That is the only thing that I can think of. That's not true. I did love the cheesiness of those animations of that skeletal,
no,
on top of those, scientific mumbo jumbo that made absolutely no sense, describing why this rotor was going to be, super powered and such, and impervious.
Oh my god.
Made no sense. But in that 80s kind of schlocky way, that was golden to me. So those were the only two moments where I was kind of I'm not, raging right now.
Okay, I'm going to disagree with you very strongly about the robot animations. Oh my god, it's so bad.
Can't you just see that, though, with, some techno music and being, utterly cheesy and pure kitsch?
I could see that in the 90s, maybe, the what's the dung 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 frog, I could see it, or I'm blue, know? Yeah. I mean, he is blue because he's a cop, so he wears blues, but, I could see that, but it's just, that animation is so terribly, terribly constructed. We're supposed to think this thing is really amazing, but when you watch it, it literally looks like it's half T-Rex. So, like, it's got these little...
I thought it looked like the Crypt Keeper.
Oh, the Crypt Keeper.
The Crypt Keeper meets T-Rex, yeah.
I can't, Daniel. I can't. It's so terrible.
But that was some 80s gold, because the 80s style music in it wasn't doing it for me. So that cheesy 80s animation, that approach to like.
That's what really did it for you. Okay, fair enough. I mean, okay.
Did you have a firm like in this?
No. There's almost nothing redeemable about this movie, and I mean that, like, not in the jokey way. I mean that really seriously. This is a wretched film. In other films we've watched where you could, like, kind of see where, like, oh, they almost had it. You know? They didn't make it, but they were, like, almost to a point where they would be just bad and not terrible. This film at no point had its moment where it almost escaped just being garbage. And that's so sad, because there are things about, like, I love how cheesy 80s it is in some ways. Because, like, when the skunk lady shows up, you know, she's like this bodybuilder lady, Jane Smith, by the way, who's in almost no movies. She's almost like a bodybuilder. She looks like a character from that TV show Gladiators. You know, where, like, they bring in regular people and they beat them up with Q-tips and stuff.
She reminded me of Anne Burrell with her hair, too. From Food Network.
Oh, I didn't know that is.
Yeah. Oh, chef from Food Network.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe. Yeah, I could see that. But, like, I like her, the way she looks. I mean, it's ridiculous. Don't get me wrong. She's got the, like, curly 80s hair with that skunk stripe right down the center of it. And it's absurd. And everything about her character is ridiculous. But there's, like, this moment where I'm like, but I kind of like if they just leaned into the 80s-ness of it. They don't, because the writers... apparently were drunk or high or I mean, there was a lot of cocaine going around in the 80s, so maybe there's that going on. I don't know. But the problem with the film is, like, every time it wants to do something interesting, it has to do it really poorly, and it makes me really sad.
Yeah.
Which is why the only thing I like about this movie was kind of the music.
Oh.
Because it is very 80s music. But it has, like, a legit soundtrack. So, like, when he's inexplicably on his ranch, which he lives on because it's Texas, so of course he lives on a ranch, it plays some cowboy song that has its own lyrics. And I was just kind of like, yeah, okay. I'm like, that's fine. I'm into it. It's fine. Or, like, there's a romantic scene where he's with this woman at a table, and it plays this kind of, like, 80s almost porn music. Not quite, but pretty close. And I was like, I kind of like what's being shown to us on the scene doesn't match the music in any meaningful way. But the music is like, all right, it's kind of good. It's all right. It's not bad.
I agree with that. But no, the but part is that, like, nothing that's happening on the screen has a relation to the music.
The only exception is the ranch scene. Or the ranch scene,
but the lyrics
is the only one
for the ranch. The style of music did, but the lyrics had absolutely nothing to do with it. I didn't think.
Oh my gosh! Let me see if I can find. Now I want to know if there's, like, a
and then the other
soundtrack.
80s music just reminded me of, like, the background music in an early NES game. Like, it was nostalgically 80s, but repetitive. And as soon as it started going, it's like, all right, I want this music to stop.
I mean, fair point. I mean, it's not.
But I understand how you're reaching for the music.
So there's Changing the Channel by Larry's Dad. I guess is a band. Larry's Dad, is that a band?
It was probably the dad of one of the producers.
I guess so. There is What You Do to Me by Randy Moore. And then there's Hideaway by Cindy Smith Moore. I'm guessing Hideaway is the romantic song. No, What You Do to Me.
What You Do to Me was, that's the romantic song. Dinner that they had, or lunch, or whatever.
Is it romantic?
It wasn't,
I don't know.
But the music was about that, at least.
Yeah. I like the music. I even kind of like the title music. Like, it's just, it doesn't fit the film, and it's just because, like, the film is made by, I feel it's insulting to amateurs to call it amateur, because Steven Spielberg was an amateur one time, and he still made interesting films.
It was talentless.
It's very talentless. Oh my god.
Either that or, they just didn't care. It was careless or talentless, I don't know.
Very possible.
But
at least, that they're like, the music's okay, and we can see how other movies are better by comparison.
But similarly to the music, there were times where I was like, oh, this is actually like a real clever shot, or movement of the camera. Like, I was trying to think, like, is the filmography here kind of, or the cinematography, whatever that term is, pretty good. But it never fit what was going on. It just seemed random, or there'd be action. Like the fight scene at the end is like in the background behind other characters, like walking slowly.
Yeah.
Another where there's a bunch of characters talking while the camera slowly pans over like objects in the living room and focuses on something. It's like, on its own, it's an artistic kind of shot. Maybe captivating and interesting, but absolutely no relation to what's supposed to be happening right now in the movie.
I mean, that's a good point. Like, all of the stuff that is, like, meant to be the visual or audible portrayal of what we're meant to see doesn't fit what the story is telling us it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Because, like, going back to that thing where, like, there's that moment where they're listening to a traffic report, which is taken from a shot of a helicopter looking over Dallas and its roads. And they're talking about how the main road is all clogged up. The traffic's like 45 minutes, but you're looking at the road and there's no cars. There's nothing there. And I'm like, you couldn't have got like a rush hour shot?
There's got to be stock footage of like traffic jams.
Right. Easily. You could have got it like that. Come on. Like, But it's all of that. Everything that, like, what we see, what is actually presented to us in the narrative never fits the actual thing we're meant to be seeing or feeling or hearing or whatever, which is just sad. I mean, that's the movie, though.
Yeah.
There's so much about this movie that just, it makes me sad.
It's all dislikes or frustrated and angry.
Yeah. I will just note that the R.O.T.O.R, by the way, I don't know if you knew, but that R.O.T.O.R is apparently adept at everything from Tai Chi to full field combat.
Yes.
So just in case you needed someone to lead a session at the quad to calm everybody down after a tough test, you can have R.O.T.O.R. Oh, lordy. Well, what about a dislike for you?
I'll let you go with one that I think you'll probably take up.
Okay.
So for me, quick one would be just acting. Was so terrible in this. And the dialogue, like the writing and the acting. Nothing really more has to be said than that, I guess. But the one thing that I really disliked was this movie at first had me thinking, could this be alike? In that it actually is science fiction that tries to inject some science in there. There was like some technical stuff of like giving explanation for why R.O.T.O.R is advanced and what its abilities are and why this matters. But they present it in the most god-awful way of voiceover narration to these, the dancing Crypt Keeper T-Rex. But also, it just made absolutely no sense. It's like, if you're going to take the effort, like, finally somebody tries to take the time to put a bit of, like, technical details into things to explain the science behind the science fiction. But it was just meaningless garbage. It was just random words. It was worse than what, the technobabble that they'd have on Star Trek. And, yeah, it was just painful. So there's a dislike.
The techno jargon and every single narration is, I mean, part of that is because the voice, Lauren Bivens' voiceover work is, I don't know if I call it sleepy, but he simultaneously is like, you makes your hair stand on end. Like, it is really excruciatingly terrible line delivery at every stage. But then every voiceover is explaining something about the story that we most of the time should have seen, or like there'd be a voiceover in the middle of nowhere. You'd just be in a scene, and then all of a sudden, here's Lauren Bivens explaining some plot thing we're supposed to have known. And sometimes you don't need to know.
Yeah, it's exposition that's utterly superfluous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
including technical jargon.
And then, like, why put it in? Why bore us if you're not going to make it accurate, or at least putting some effort into making it be interesting?
I mean, I don't think that's possible because the voiceover work and the acting in general, pretty much all line delivery in this is really lackluster.
Oh yeah, stilted.
Very stilted, and the times when it's just bad line delivery, but people are trying, it's for when people are playing caricatures.
Yeah.
Which really is probably one of my biggest dislikes here is there is a character who Shoe Boogie.
Yeah.
Who is it's supposed to be I'm using the language from the internet here, jive talking Native American. I'll just leave that for you. Who works at the big facility, and he just like lays out a long string of random Native American tropes about himself and his people. He's like Red Apache or whatever, and he just like makes up all this stuff. And the problem is, I'm pretty sure, even though we don't know the identity of the actor who played Shoe Boogie because he's uncredited and his identity has never been verified, I'm gonna go out on a limb. He's not Native American, at all, not remotely. And B, like half the things that he says about Native Americans are not Native American. So like the thing he talks about the blood eagle, which is this like I don't remember what it is in the movie, but he's describing some weird torture method or whatever that Native Americans did or whatever. That's not anything Native American. The blood eagle specifically comes from Viking mythology, and it's a horrific torture method where your lungs are pulled out of your back and laid out like wings, and you're meant to be alive while this is done. It's probably mythical. It may or may not have actually been done to people. So, like, all of this is going on, and there's all of this just really racist like caricatures of Native people by this actor who's clearly not Native, pretending to be Native. And this is coupled with all of these moments in this movie where I guess they're just trying to capture aspects of like 80s culture, but in the most ham-fisted and weirdly offensive ways. Like, for example, Sonia, who is this poor woman who's being chased by R.O.T.O.R. Her boyfriend / future husband, is like this really old school sexist who, right, mind you, this is the future that we're supposedly, there's nothing really about it that shows the future, but like we're meant to think this is the future. And he still thinks that when they get married, she's not going to have a job no more. Right. And she's like, but I want to work. And he's like getting mad at her because she wants to work. And I like those caricatures are there. Then there's the whole, racist Hispanic caricature by a bunch of actors who are clearly not Hispanic, because of course only criminals can be Hispanic in this universe. And then of course he kills them all because of course you do. Why not? So like you get all these like really racist caricatures, and then you start to realize, oh, the fantasy that this movie is imagining for why we need R.O.T.O.R in the first place, is a long string of caricatures and hasty generalizations and racism and sexism that aren't grounded in actual reality. And that's the root of this movie. It is all a long string of racism.
It's an ugly movie, yeah. Well, even in...
Really?
I mean, in Shoe Boogie's, that brief scene with Shoe Boogie, in just a span of a few lines, he manages to be absurdly racist, misogynistic, and homophobic. All in, like, the spans and, like... But it was not just... It was, like, tying the homophobia to the racism, too.
Yeah.
The line.
Yeah.
It's like they were going out of their way to... It's like it was being written by Elon Musk.
Almost, yeah, it does feel like that. I mean, ironically, the actor playing Shoe Boogie gives a better performance than most people in this movie, and it's not a good performance.
That's actually true, yeah. Yeah.
But it's still
Yeah.
better, which is why it's so sad. Why couldn't he have more, just better lines?
And are there many black people in the movie? I
There's,
remember like one African American who was portrayed very stereotypically.
right, he's the cop.
He was a cop, okay.
Or a detective, I suppose you
No,
could say.
but there was the one that, like, I thought he was like someone else that maybe he was still a cop. When R.O.T.O.R first grabbed the motorcycle and he like bumped into him when R.O.T.O.R first escaped the facility.
Oh, him! Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
The security guy.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
That's the only other one I could think of, but
there aren't a lot of people of color.
And is portrayed stereotypically there too. Which change of
probably the least offensive non-white portrayal, though.
Well, yes. And it was at least played by someone of the heritage that they were supposed to be, I guess.
There is that. So we have one almost accurate representation in here.
Right.
Which is nice.
So
does this pass the Bechdel test? I don't think it does.
I don't
because
think so.
Does Sonia ever speak to Dr. Corin R. Steele? I don't think so.
But I also I haven't seen the whole ending, so.
I don't recall if they do, and then I guess the question now gets raised, which is, does R.O.T.O.R count as a man? Even though it's a robot.
Right.
Because they probably would be talking about R.O.T.O.R. I guess you count him as a man.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know.
So, R.O.T.O.R confuses me. Okay. And I guess, I don't know if this is just like as much as a confusion. One, what is R.O.T.O.R's problem with loud honking of horns? Why?
He needs a weakness.
Okay. So it's purely...
There's no logic
the writer
to it.
needs to put in a weakness, okay, and then
I mean, why would a cop robot be sensitive to loud noises?
Well, it's not just any; it's like specifically the car horn. It seems to be.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
And then the other thing that made no sense to me was R.O.T.O.R when he first is awakened, he's walking through like an area and just like knocks over a bunch of chairs that are set out, like he doesn't know how to walk around the chairs. And this repeats in other parts, too, where he doesn't seem to notice objects in front of him or doesn't care.
Right.
Yet when he goes to get the motorcycle, he very carefully, like, takes the cord and just unchains it and moves it to the side. It's like, this you see? But everything else, you're just, like, walking through, no problem. There was no consistency there at all.
None. They wanted us to think he was a robot because, like, if you look at the movie poster, he's presented as, like, a robot in, like, a cop leather jacket and pants. Mm-hmm. Like, so he's meant to be a legit robot. But what we're shown in the movie is a man.
A Village
pretending
People.
to be a robot.
Yeah.
Yeah, a Village People. Yeah, it's literally the Village People guy. And so I think that the problem is like, well, okay, well then how do you make him seem more robotic? Well, you have him walk weird. You have him say almost no legitimate words except go in like a weirdly robotic voice because he grunts a lot. And you have him walk into things because even though he's an advanced super robot, he can't do that. And like, there's occasionally stuff where they show his vision, but again, they don't have the effects budget that like even basic Terminator had. You know, where they could show like what his vision is, like maybe he's getting all this data sent to him or whatever. We don't get that at all. So it seems like they just needed to make him feel more robotic, and this is the cheapest way they could do so. Instead of doing even something as simple as like, I don't know, like you could have him like maybe he gets cut, but it's like motor oil that comes out or something. Which I'm not saying is great, but is better than what we're shown. Yeah. But, I mean, there's nothing about him that is actually robot, except that we're told he's robot.
Well, they're also trying to draw parallels to Frankenstein here, because they reference that a bunch of times at the beginning too. And so he has a bit of Frankenstein's monster to his behavior, I guess. And there's kind of...
Oh, so he's maybe childlike in some respects?
Well, also just kind of like the and the wobbling, and at the end there's a bit of homage, and when they lasso him and such, that reminded me a little bit of the townspeople going after Frankenstein's monster at the end of James Whale's movie, which could have been done better and could have been clever, but it's the creators of R.O.T.O.R, so. Because he's not Frankenstein in any sense, right? He's not made up of parts. He's not...
Right.
I mean aside from being a creation of a scientist.
That's the only linkage. Because his outer skeleton, they don't describe, why he looks like a human. I don't even think they describe in the movie why they have that.
No. They just describe him being an unknown alloy that has, weird properties.
What? Okay. Sure. As you do.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of this movie is just incredibly... they wanted to have a bunch of story elements, but they just didn't have the budget to film them. There's this bit where, so R.O.T.O.R's chasing this woman, but he has a magic ability, which is one of the special effects shots we get, which is he can, I guess, technically see the past... Question mark. So when he shows up at the gas station where she was and had called 911, he can see backwards a little bit to, that she was there and then that she left, and then he can follow the direction. So he's chasing her, and Cold Iron meets up with her, semi-rescues her from him, and then just tells her, you need to run, and just go, and then, I will catch up with you later. And I'm like, wait, hold on. How's that supposed to work? Because this is the 80s. So is she supposed to show up at a certain location and then he'll call her there? How do they meet up? And, and more importantly, he calls someone from another city who flies in and he picks her up. So this poor woman is in this car. She's just driving around being chased by a maniac machine cop. And presumably has to fill her car up because it's in his Isuzu, sport vehicle or whatever. So she has to fill it up and hope that R.O.T.O.R doesn't catch her while she waits for this guy who's going to meet up with her mysteriously at a place that they haven't determined together yet. After he picks this lady, the skunk hair lady from the airport, who he needs for some reason, I guess because she's strong. I don't know. There's so many layers of just how do we get from A to C here? How do all this fit together? There's no logic to it. It just all comes together at the end, except that skunk hair lady dies, ? Does she die?
Spoiler alert.
Because maybe she's not, because at the end, where you hinted at there might be a sequel, R.O.T.O.R 2, and it's the skunk hair lady. Just saying. We could have had a sequel to this movie.
Did they really not make it?
No. I'm very grateful that this did not happen.
There was even a sequel to Manos.
Was there?
Yeah.
Son of Manos?
I don't remember what it was called, but yeah, they eventually made a Manos sequel. The beginning of this actually reminded me a lot of the beginning of Manos. I mean, both Texas. Random shots of driving, random shots of fields, and how does this relate to the movie? When is this movie going to start? It's been a half hour already, right? Oh shit, no, it's only been 12 minutes.
I kept, so I streamed it for the folks in the Discord channel on our Patreon, and one of the things that I did was, when you stream it, you don't want your mouse hanging over because it'll bring up all of the little interface stuff, and you just want them to be able to see the movie. But occasionally I would just bring my mouse over and hover over to see how much longer was left. And Andrew was there watching. And I did it really quick and went back. And Andrew was like, wait, how long is left? And to go back. Because we did it at the half hour point. And then 45. And then at an hour. And an hour and 10. And it was still going at like an hour and 24, and we're just like going, oh my god, how much more of this is there left? Because this movie, despite having a lot of things moving around and happening, is really, really drags. Really drag. And I think part of it is because most of the movie isn't an action sequence. The action sequences we get are, I mean, even for the 80s, not great. They're really, really boring fight scenes.
And there's the brief motorcycle chase.
Oh my god, yes.
And there's the talking on phone action scenes. There's a few of those.
I am here on my phone talking to you. In my voice, because I'm Lauren Bivens. I made that sound more interesting than the movie. Mm-hmm. Which is really sad.
All right. God. We should wrap up, right?
What? I think we should wrap this up. I do just want to note, I wasn't kidding when I'm pretty convinced they did not have permits for a lot of the shots they did. Because there are just some things where I'm like, they couldn't afford a legitimate stuntman. There's no way. So, like, the guy on the motorcycle, like, doing these, like, kind of dangerous maneuvers a little bit, and then going, they didn't have permits for this. There's no fucking way. I just don't buy it. I mean, it is Texas, so maybe they did, because maybe Texas doesn't care, but I don't know. It's weird. But yeah, let's wrap this up. So, Daniel, your final thoughts and a grade. Go.
Nothing redeemable. F. I'm sure
so quick.
I mean, what's left to say? I'm sure there's things that are worse out there.
Sure.
I'm sure, but F.
Well, you do know that F minus is a grade you can give, right?
Oh, is it a...
yeah, F minus is the lowest possible grade.
Yeah, F minus then.
Okay, I just wanted to help you out. I mean, I'm with you. I feel like other films we've watched, we've watched films where it's not good. Maybe it's offensive, maybe the plot doesn't make sense, or they're just storyline elements that really fall apart, or the effects don't quite live up to expectation. And then you watch a film like this and you're like, I actually feel like I should go back and regrade all of those films that I gave low grades to, because maybe I was too mean. Because this is, when we watch Jesus Christ Vampire Hunter, right? It's not a high quality film. It's very poorly done, but it's kind of intentional. It's really ridiculous, but it has moments that are kind of fun. And you kind of go, okay. But it's also like they weren't trying to be blockbusters. They were making an independent film, and they were like, there was a bunch of people having fun, like, making it together. This, I think, was trying to be a legitimate movie, and it was made by incompetent buffoons. And so for that reason, I am with you. It's an F minus. I don't ever want to watch this movie again. No, thank you. I will note my brother was disappointed that I didn't tell him this is the movie we're watching, because I think he would have joined us.
Oh, no.
So, Jeff, if you're in chat while we're closing out the show proper, if you wouldn't mind letting us know if you've seen this movie, what grade would you give it on the American scale from an F minus to an A plus? Because I would be very curious. And if you have any final thoughts, and then while we're doing the closeout portion, we may read it at the end if you would be so inclined. So for folks that are listening on the podcast version, thank you very much for being here. That's the end of our podcast. We would like to remind you that you can go to skiffingfanny.com/listener suggestions. You can send us comments, feedback, any of that kind of stuff, or even suggestions for shows, etc. All that, go there. Please let us know. We also love to hear from people, and if you send us any comments about movies you've watched, or questions or whatever, let's just say I'll watch it. We'll read it out loud for you. So there you go. If you'd like to follow the show, Skiffing Fanny is on most of the social media sites. We have a link tree, linktr.ee/skiffingfanty, which is where you can find links to all of our things. We have a newsletter. Again, go to the link tree. You can find the link there. And if you like what we do, please, patreon.com/skiffingfanty. If you do go there for $3 and up, you can actually join us for the Discord live watches when we'll watch the movie together as a group and have fun. And then if any other level is fine too, you can support. And then please give reviews of the show if you would be so kind. For me, I am at SeanDuke.net. I'm at Alphabet Streams on Twitch, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central. I'm also at patreon.com/thejoyfactory, and then you can find me on various social medias at my Linktree, which is just /SeanDuke.
You can find me at reading1000lives.com or on Blue Sky at reading1000lives.
And I will note that Jeff has in fact gotten back to us live right now. So Jeff says, as a broadcaster, he has aired it multiple times. The edited for TV version is even less coherent. And there is a version with Millennium that is currently $125 on Blu-ray. I will just note that Shout Factory, I think, also has it on a collection at the moment. Let me just double check.
I'm surprised that's available streaming, then.
Oh, no, that is the Shout Factory version. So it may not be available
out
for
of
cheap
print
no more.
Yeah.
It's out of print. So that is the Shout Factory version. Jeff has just noted in chat as well that that's in fact the case. It may be on one of those like big collections of shit movies on DVD somewhere. But again, if you want to pay $125 to watch this, or just go to YouTube, it is there in Finnish
with Finnish subtitles
or otherwise. Or there is a version on Tubi if you just want extra laughs, which is the Riff Trex version. So there you go. And there are Spanish and French versions on Amazon, apparently, according to Jeff in chat. So if you would like to suffer through this movie, you can. But in any case, I'm just going to say, you know what? That's good enough for an awkward ending. $125, best money you could spend right now. On that note, awkward ending and scene. If you want to support this show, you can go to patreon.com/skiffyandfanty or skiffyandfanty.com, our website, where you can get access to all of our fancy things. Our music comes from Holy Mole. You can support him and his work at patreon.com/holymole. Thank you for listening.